is an urban farm in Columbus, Ohio. We obtained our first site in 2014, and since then we've expanded to operate two urban farm-based properties. They're rural sites and a rural site located in Johnstown, Ohio. And so we also have a community food system in partnership with the LSS Food Pantry and a farm stand, which serves as an aggregation point. Along with bringing fresh food and produce to serve our community, we offer a variety of educational programs centered around agronomics and host events to educate on nutrition and health and wellness, and bring together our community in Southside of Columbus. And so I've got a little map here that kind of shows, where we're at in all of this. And so these three sites here, I believe those are each. So this is the church, and this is where our first access in the land and doing this work was at the church. And I've got some slides that'll show that. And then we also, and this is my residence, this is the community in which I live. I've lived here for 30 years and raised my family in this community. I got 6 kids, and they pretty much have lived their life, the majority of it. Some of them in this one, but my oldest is 42 years old. And so he was like 12 when we moved into this community. And so our urban farm network has expanded. It started here at the church. And then we have different land banks, properties in the community. Our farm stand is now here. And then we have the LSS Food Pantry, Lutheran Social Service Food Pantry. It's just around the corner. That is a site that we're developing. I think I've got slides that shows that development, but then there's a community action network that is in the community that we have some proposed relationships where we're even doing more to grow our capacity to produce food in this community. And so this slide here is kind of showing some of the work at our at the church, in understanding, what it is you want to do. And that's one thing I wanted to say. Understand what it is you want to do, why you want to do it, and then even have a vision of how you're going to get there. And so I have to say that, as very much as a visionary, I did not see all that we're doing now, but I have learned. And so I appreciate the point that Ms. Patty has said, even in the introduction, about me learning. And so I am still learning. And as I learn, I'm also transitioning that wealth of information onto the people that we impact. And it is about our community, which is a very much a transitioning community, African American. It was what you would consider a middle income community that had a nice mix of diverse community of African American. We have Asians and then European in our community, but we're in the footprint of Nationwide Children's Hospital, and within 2 miles of Nationwide Children's Hospital. So our community is greatly changing. And so out of that work, and so that was in 2014. Our primary goal for that was to be able to reach youth in our community, to give them some purpose in their community. And we were teaching them not only soft skills, but also hands-on skill about building fences. There was a disconnect in our community that we wasn't seeing the grandmothers and those leaders of community and grandfathers doing that backyard gardening and having those conversations. And so we wanted to connect our community to that. The screen all the way to the far right, left, that I got my cursor on it. This is that second land bank property. Because our work took off so fast at the church, and we realized everybody's not coming to the church and to participate. And we wanted this stuff to come right to the community. We searched out this plot here, which is about a half a block from my home. I remember when the house was there and got tore down, we had a lot of blight in our community from from the economic downturn. I think that was in 2008 that a lot of those houses were present. And so we began to address the blight in our community and the blight that was in the relationships. So that relationships is key. Um, and so as we built on it, we quickly found out about, even in fresh food access and in trying to tell our story, about these and having these land bank properties that, hey, people wanted this stuff that we were growing. We are considered a food desert. We are less than we're about 1.9 miles from the nearest grocery store, major grocery store. We have a lot of corner stores in our community, but they do not have fresh food at those. And so we began building. So this is our second land bank property. And I want to make sure that I focus on the process of land banks. So I'm gonna click through some of these screens so that you guys understand what these land bank properties is. This is another property down here on the lower left, is another property that's in our community, and it still looks like this current day, and it has still looked like that for the last I'd say 7 years. It's there. I remember when the house was there, they tore it down, and this is the end result of what we got. This particular property is owned by an investor, and an investor in California. They are not there regularly maintaining, and so we want to address that in our community. The process to obtain these properties has changed some for land banks, and so this is our second one. This upper left. That is it in its beginning. So I do got some other slides. Let me get down through here because I want everybody to understand these blighted communities and this work. And so my screens is a little bit off in telling the story, but this is our third property. This is a piece of commercial property that is in our community. This is where our farm stand is going to be. And so you have a rendering there, what our farm stand is going to look like. This is a piece of commercial property that is owned by the Donatos, the Grody family of Donatos. And so you see us pictured in this photo this is Jim Grody, the founder of Donato's Pizza, his daughter, Jane Abel Grody, who you see on the commercials for Donato's, and this is their son. This plot where we're standing, the original Grody family actually lived on this property. And this is also just to the right of here is where there is a Donato's present in the community, and that is the original Donato's store. And so this is that current site. We're developing our farm stand, and so you see we've got the foundations set for our outdoor pavilion. Let me click back to that other one. You can see this structure here. That's what's going to be all there. It also has, it's going to be in the rear of this area, is going to be a 20 by 16 refrigeration. And so we have this property here because we asked them to use that property, and they like our story and what it is we're doing in community. They are making that available at no cost. But they just ask that we do what we say we're going to do, maintain the property, and like I said, just keep the mission and the vision of where we have it currently, and not to move outside of that. And so we do have a long-term, access to that land, and it's under lease, and that is through relationships. And so I can't emphasize enough about relationships. This is the partnership at Lutheran Social Services. And this is the drawing for that. And I do apologize for all the videos. It's not really dwelling down on the information of what we want to get to, but LSS is a food pantry that has been longstanding in our community. I can even remember the point when I first moved to the community that me and my family had to access the pantry, and we walked around to the pantry, and I had my son pull the wagon, and we had it loaded, and maybe had the next older child carry a backpack, and we had need to go to the food pantry. And so we also have our civic meetings in this pantry. But man, we've got and so this was a land bank site also that they have purchased this property. They were able to outright purchase that property because they have the building that is next door to it. I am not sure of the cost of theirs, but we'll keep getting on to try and get to our stuff. And this might be what people might want to hear more of, is our rural property, because even with that second land bank site, and those sites are like, the size of those sites are like 35 by 130. And so I think that comes up to like, it's like 360 square feet, not square yards, I think that is. But it was not enough. We could not grow enough culturally relevant food on that site for our community. And so somebody might say, what is he talking about? We couldn't grow enough collard greens. Man, they have our collard greens staked out and always on the know, is it my turn to receive one? We are a nonprofit. We are a nonprofit, and everything was, we were donating to the community to address the needs of the community. And so this property here at Johnstown, we attended an OEFFA conference, and we went to a workshop on land access. And so this property here, we found it. And this is some of the beginning pictures. We found that property, and to lease 1 acre of property, and it came with the use of a tractor. This picture to the right is a wash and pack area inside of a building. I don't know if I've got more slides of that on there. Yes, this is the picture of the inside of our wash and pack area. This is that building. There is a barn that this tractor is sitting outside. We have full use of this tractor, these farm implements. And so this is our tiller. That's our tiller. And it's also got a bush hog, and you can see a corn seeder, a planter up in this top picture, and some other implements. And so for $1,000, we have access to 1 acre. Additional acre is that additional acreage was $500. And so we have expanded now. So we have 3 acres there. We have actually utilized only about 1.5 acres has been planted. We just got through doing a cover crop. We did a soil test and was going to do plant corn, and the soil test did not come back favorably. So we put in a cover crop, and we're going to do that spring and summer of next year. And so there's a total of 28 acres on that property. There is another farm that's on that. Many might be aware of Roots, Fruits, and Shoots, that is managed by Dana Hillfinger, and she used to be an extension agent of both Central State and Ohio State, and has worked with even the Mansfield microfarm that Walt Bonham is speaking about in the other workshop. And so she's also a farmer on that property, and so she has about 3 acres also. The rest is in conservation. And so I wanted to make sure I talk about develop your vision in a sustainable model. Understand the needs and resources of your community, and understanding what's available. Seek and build out connection and resources, and even understand who's willing. Because one thing I found out, even when we started with the land bank, we were in partnership with the Civic Association, which I am the president of the Civic Association in this community. Everybody that jumps on board is not always willing to give support in the way that you need it and that is most valuable. And so we quickly figured out who wanted to work and who didn't, but it was okay. And so we switched to that full ownership of the organization of Southside Family Farms. It had another mission of growing community and family concerns when we were partnered with the Civic. And so it did not come with any access to water or electricity. And so on that property, we began to, we had an urban farmer grant. It was a USDA grant that Mid-Ohio Food Bank was a facilitator of, and it made available, it was a $25,000 grant, of which we applied for $24,999, and we received out of that 12,000. And they said, you make this site sustainable, and we will give you the access to the rest of those funds in a second round of funding. And so in that, I don't know if I've got slides of it, but we ended up doing water access. We did not go with the hot box as demonstrated here, and that's actually we were trying to understand how can we get water on the property. So some of you may know Tim McDermott took me on a fact-finding trip. This is at Franklinton Farm, that I might be able to understand, you know, how can you get water. And so way I understood it is this box was like $3,500 alone. And there's a heater and you put your meter in there. And I'm like, well, can't we just put that in a shed instead of spending that much on this box and this operation? And so we found out we could do that, and we did that. And I want, and we can answer more in Q&As, but in leveraging the funds, we also went to find soil. We established a relationship with Jones Fuel Oil. And we did that early on when we were at the church, and we were actually awarded like, that was almost $2,000 worth of soil in a free donation because we asked, you know, we and that's where my faith comes in. We learned to ask, and we got a positive answer, and that's been a long relationship, and a relationship that I shared with others, and they were actually able to benefit from that. And so even in talking about those resources and relationships, I don't want people to think that we did this all on our own. And so a lot of our help has come from this organization, The Mission Continues. They have been very instrumental. Each time they come to assist with manpower, they brought like $1,500 to every project in materials as well as manpower. That and about 35 people, and even down to maybe just 12 people, but it usually averaged around 30 people, and they've done so much at that farm. And so I wanted to show y'all that. I don't know if I captured it in that picture that had Tim McDermott. Nope, we didn't show that slide. But one thing I'm always putting an eye. I want people to understand that in your vision, always have an eye to what you want to do. And sometimes you might be looking at something somebody else has done, and then your vision will begin to grow. So I don't mind you looking at what we've done and be able to expand your vision. And so some of the other stakeholders was the Travis Manion Foundation, Alvis House provides volunteers, Franklin Park Conservatory, Master Gardeners, Grange and Shorts, Nationwide Children's Hospital, United Way, university student organizations. And that's who these young people here are, is engineering students from Ohio State. And they have helped us with some stormwater runoff. They have applied for a grant, and we've installed those things. But more importantly, it's about the relationship there and helping get things done on their properties. And so, Miss Patty, how am I doing on time so far as the presentation?
You are doing great. We still have plenty of time. I think you can probably go for another 15 minutes, and then we can open it up to questions and answers.
I don't know what I did.
Uh-oh. Maybe you pressed a tab. Maybe you pressed hit a tab.
Tab. Oh, and so how do I untab?
Okay, go to the top or go to the top of your screen where you see Agraria presentation. Click on that and see if that'll get you back. Go to the very top of your screen. Okay, top. Keep going. I see your little arrow. Now go next door. Click.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
So yeah, you just keep me on, and I'll put this tab over here somewhere where I might not mess it up again. But um, and just even trying to bring it back to what I'm supposed to be talking about is land access. And, OFA was a relationship that I came into and began to understand more resources. And so I went to the OFA conference, and man, what a new world that opened up for me. That was the first time when I went. And so I think it was on my second trip to the OFA conference that they had a presentation um, around land access. And so, as a BIPOC farmer, and so that was a totally new word for me. And so far as the work around BIPOC farming was really starting to uplift more in the community. I think our required reading for um, the new beginning farmer class at OFA was Farming While Black by Miss Leah Penniman. And some of you may be familiar with her work in upstate New York, but what a powerful story. And, I got in this, this thing about farming. We were just trying to teach young African American youth in our community about some fence building skills. Our vision grew once we understood fresh food access, and then fresh food access led into, wait a minute, there's some economic challenges that's needs to be addressed in our community. And so right now, I call it, we're farming farmers. And so we want to develop young people in our community to be farmers, to consider agronomic avenues that they can begin to access land. Uh, in that in that class at OPA, we started understanding some of the barriers that are present for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Some of the barriers and systematic challenges that have been present, and even with land access and even the access to wealth. I appreciate the presenters that were there today, and even listening to them today, I said, hey, I'm glad I'm a man of faith, because a lot of things that they're asking for, my path has not been an easy one, and there have been challenges and been barriers. Although I own my house and some other properties in the community, it is still challenging to get access to capital. And they still tell you, people are still telling you no. So I'm just saying, make sure you keep building relationships. We are a nonprofit, and so I heard him say that about the FSA does not totally lend to them, but know that the USDA has a lot of programs out there that they will fund. And so we actually were a recipient of a SARE grant, a Sustainable Agriculture and Research and Education, where we are teaching these African American youth about farming and their heritage of sustainable farming, that that they would begin to know that yes, you can have some land, but you have to be able to work past the barriers and the challenges, and be very intentional as well as be persistent. And so I put this on the slides, and we will make these slides available. I'm not sure if I had a Vista worker that was in one of the other classes. One of our Vistas. And so that's one of our new relationship is this year we were able to apply for AmeriCorps Vistas. So we have one that is assisting with our programs, and then another with our operations. And so they've been a blessing. They were about 3 months into our relationship, and man, the things that we got planned for 2023 to expand our enterprise, and that is in those other sites that you see. And we did not mention we got a high school that is about 3 blocks west of us that we are engaging these 8th grade students and want to do a farm to school there. And so I'm not sure how many would be on this path, and more might be looking more at um, a for-profit and a LLC. Oh gosh, what a story I got, man. Because when we were at OFA, that's what me and my wife were doing. and we were in a LLC mode for Seedlings of Change and Plants for Progress. That was our vision, but being a man of faith, God gave us another vision, that it wasn't about our work, but it was more his work. And so it changed more to the community and this nonprofit. But even in that work, we understand that a for-profit and a nonprofit can work together, and it's called a social enterprise. And so we're still learning, and we do recognize that Southside Family Farms is going to be a great instrument and tool here on the South Side, as we want to own our own land. And there were challenges to get to Johnstown, and that we could teach our youth there. And so we're going to overcome them challenges, that we want the same acreage here a little closer to home. And it might be in multiple sites, much like Franklinton Farms, who is one of the largest urban farmers in Central Ohio, that is doing some really great work that we are partnered with. But they have 18 to 22 land bank properties, urban farming. So this is very much urban farming. And we're blessed to have that 3 acres that allows us to do greater capacity, that we can bring those fruits and vegetables in, that we can impact our community. But I put this information in there. These are the land banks in the Hamilton and Montgomery and in Franklin County. So that's Dayton and Cincinnati. I wanted to make sure I sent that. Maybe if there's somebody that's in our workshop here that is from Franklin County, this is a link to this bottom one is a link to the local food action plan and how it lines up with these properties, because there are some challenges and barriers in that, and we can talk more about some of those things in our workshop, in our conversations and Q&A. And so Ms. Patty, are there any questions right now? Is this a good segue?
I think this is a great point to open up the floor to questions. Anybody, if you have a question, or if you even have a comment, or you want to share what you're doing, and maybe Minister Hopkins can probably give you some guidance. Now's the time that we're going to just make it more of a dialogue and conversation with Minister Hopkins. So either raise your hand or put something in the chat, and I'll unmute you. I can unmute everybody right now. But if you have a question, I think I would like to start it off, because I actually kind of came into kind of the farming through a faith based organization. I went to New York and to participate in a farming apprenticeship and residential farming program through the Episcopal Church. I was wondering, were there any barriers for you because you were a faith-based organization, or any like hesitation when you were seeking funding or anything of that nature that you encountered?
And that's a good question. And yes, there were. And so that work began in 2014. And so a lot has changed in the faith-based community so far around funding, because this thing about growing your own food and food deserts, and understanding how communities begin to get food deserts, and people have to, and so I'll come back to that. But like, one of the first barriers that I saw in that was, when we started that first garden at the church, and I don't know if I can click back to that first screen. Yeah, and so this one screen that I showed here, all this lumber that you see here, we didn't know where this lumber was coming from. We knew that we wanted an urban farm right here. We wanted some lumber that we could teach young people how to build this right here in their communities. And so we asked like Lowe's, we had heard about Lowe's, and they were doing community work. But when we asked, he said, well, the fact that you're asking it, and you're asking it from the church, he said we cannot fulfill that because you know, we don't want one belief feeling any less like we discriminated against them. So they did not have a policy of doing donations to faith-based organizations. Now we could ask as the community, and so I think we partnered with someone from out of the court system. We had a relationship with the court, and so they provided like $2,500, and then we reached back out to Lowe's and said, well, hey, we've got $2,500. Could you now provide some help through this program that we are doing through community? And that's where the community and church relationship came in. And they recognized that relationship of the community and civic organization, and working with the courts, the court system. And so they gave us the materials at cost, and it was able, you know, it greatly helped us out. These beds here is all cedar. And so, you know, I had a partner that was working with me. I'm like, man, you're asking for cedar boards? And I'm like, whoa, that could be really expensive. And so, yeah, they did. We were able to get those through that funding. And yes, that was the beginning of a powerful relationship with Lowe's. My friend there, some may know Mr. Doug Brownsfield. I believe that I don't know if he has already retired, but he has been a great friend to the agricultural efforts in Franklin County and in the Licking County area, of which he lives. And so, great advocate, and you know, being in place where he could make resources available to these inner city communities. And so one thing that I have seen though is in this work that we were doing, crime and violence around young people and you know, the dropout rates of young people in school was very challenging. And this, you know, we had been doing that work before that time, before 2015. And so the larger screen of things is they recognize that we need to do something, and working through the church to be able to make these resources more available to work with young people. So in regards to your question, there used to be some barriers, but those barriers are starting to go away, that they recognize that, yes, that in these inner city and these urban communities, the church is very pivotal in being able to work with to get the communities the resources that it needs.
That's interesting. One of the things you just mentioned, which is one of the things that we did up in New York when I was affiliated with the name of the farm was Bluestone Farm, was we entered a partnership with the local, government and the court system, and we became a site where people could work off their community service. I mean, we had, it was basically the farm was belonged to an order of nuns, and so they really didn't want people with that had serious felonies. But most of who we worked with were people who had nonviolent drug convictions, nonviolent or DUIs, and that ended up being a really good program for us. And that kind of helped establish us as being not just some farm that was a religious farm, but a farm that wanted to do something to help the community.
Yes, yes. And so one thing that we identified at the beginning of our journey is, and we still firmly believe that a lot of the challenges that exist in inner city crime and the drug problems and stuff is attributed around low economic growth. And you don't see a lot of programs that are aimed directly at the inner city towards building education and and the talents for people to elevate their lives. And so with this community now, even facing gentrification, you see a lot of families that are being displaced. And, being the civic president of this community and an area commission, I empower them to know that, hey, you can take active change, become part of the solution, and don't allow to be part of the problem that, hey, you're getting forced out, but find out what things you can do to secure your position in the community. And so even as you talked about that program, and I'm not sure how long ago that was, that you had the program that was working at the gardens or in the program you were doing. But it's very ironic that my pastor has been going to Washington, D.C. and working with the city council and the courts here. But he announced a program even today that we're going to announce to the area commission. I am area commissioner for the Columbus Southside Area Commission. I'm religious and social services. That he's got a program. There's been a lot of, everyone's aware of the Kia and Hyundai
Yes.
cars being, and so there's a lot of youth that we're seeing that, hey, they're not putting them in jail and they're released right back out. And there's really seems like there is no mentoring or nothing to these youth. And so that's contrary. There are people that are behind the scenes wanting to make a difference. And so my pastor is one of them, and I think it's called Restorative Justice. And so they have received some funding that, hey, these youth, they have some, some fees and stuff that they need to pay. They need to pay for the damages and stuff on the car. And so, hey, we're going to give them some jobs in the community and specifically at these urban farms that they can come and work that off, that they can make the restitution and things. But mainly it's about the mentoring. And so that we're already about that we want to give them some goals and some talents and get them back looking at educational things that they can become farmers. And so that's that phrase I say, we're farming farmers. We want them to go on to school and to understand agriculture, come back into the community, continue working with Southside Family Farms, growing in their education and being part of this community-based effort. And that's where the social enterprise is coming in because we have a CSA program as well as a free distribution model. But we definitely want that sustainability in our community. And, we're going to need to show the banks and the other lenders that it's not just grant money, but that we're doing things that we can begin to enlarge our capacity.
Bernice has, Miss Bernice has a question. Go ahead, Miss Bernice.
Yes, I have a question concerning the association of slavery with farm work.
Yes.
And,
that was going to be my question.
And that how that creates some barriers to getting Black people to come into the consideration, bring Black people to consider farming as a possibility of a career, as well as just something to do to be self-sustaining. And also there's association of walking compared to riding that creates that same barrier to moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand that concept of riding as compared
so I don't want to be seen walking anywhere. So walking on the land, walking on the sidewalk. I want to be in a car so it doesn't look like I'm not, that it looks like I can drive a car or that I have a car or, that I have this material thing. So anything that requires walking, you don't want to be seen doing that.
I think I understand where you're coming from. Let me just reiterate and frame the question. I think farming has a stigma because of its tie to the enslavement of our people, in that this is viewed as a low status thing. So making farming look as an attractive vocation or something to pursue for young people probably is a challenge for you. And also too, coming from a standpoint of you're doing this to work off some type of court thing, that it looks like punitive. It's a punitive thing to be associated with farming. So either by slave or by the court thing.
Wow, that's big
Rephrasing.
right there. You know, that is something, and I did not see that, but so far as that stigma, and even, you know, I am the outreach minister. You know, I am a gospel preacher and a gospel minister at the church, and been given the assignment of community outreach, and so we've been working through economic challenges, wanting to address the overgrown grass. You know, like, hey, how come these youth can't have jobs and to be able to, you know, teach them that old precept of being able to work, you know, shoveling snow and those things in your community. And so when I went to talk about farming, and yes, within the Black church, I can't speak for other churches, but within the Black church, there is that stigma amongst some of the elders that, yes, that, you know, no, you ain't gonna get them young folks to dig in no dirt. And so I you know, the stigma of slavery is there, but what impacted me is to really understand the heritage of African American farming. And that is that grant that I was awarded through SARE was specifically around that, to educate these young African Americans on their heritage, because we were farmers before we came to this land and were enslaved to do that. And they were farming. And so at one time, 90% of the farmers in the United States, which is still one of the, you know, we're an agricultural nation. Technology is a big one, but farming and working on the land is what brings in the most money. And so technology is coming up close, but to understand in those states in the northern regions where African Americans that was once enslaved or that had gained their freedom, they migrated into those areas of Michigan and Wisconsin and moved north, that they became major landowners before 40 acres and a mule. And they were up there farming on major areas of land. And the African Americans had great wealth in the United States before that land was taken from them. And so we, you know, us as a community, and even within the BIPOC growing, you know, that realm of Black indigenous, you know, because the story of the indigenous people of this land that once inhabited this land and were great farmers on this land and have lost their land because it was taken from them. And not to get so much stuck on the fact that the land was taken from them, but the fact is that's how they sustained themselves. They were already farmers. And so that's the one thing we're dwelling on is, you know, don't look at that problem. Look at how you can begin to uplift yourself. Look at the economics that's attached in agriculture. Find your space in there. Find your space in the story, and really begin to excel at it. So I've been, and you know, one thing we want to start having our community understand is about an asset-based community development. And, you know, it's that proverbial thought, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? And start looking at, instead of kind of complaining about the things that are coming into our community, well, they got this, they got that. Hey, let's look and see what we have, what talents have we got. And so that's what started with them grandmothers. Hey, we got grandmothers that, hey, they know how to get you all the way together. And the story of those grandmothers was being lost. It was not being transferred to the young ladies of the community. And, you know, we face that challenge a lot. Don't know how to cook, don't know how to identify them vegetables. And so we've taken that on, and man, we're having fun with this and the excitement of these youth, that even understanding about redlining in our community, and, you know, those barriers that are still very present, and why the grocery stores are closing in the predominantly Black or indigenous communities. You know, why is the grocery store closing, and why are they moving to the more affluent area? And why is all of our food now being forced into corner stores and places that traditionally do not have that? And how come we're getting more dollar stores in our community as opposed, and, you know, our fruits and vegetables are going there. And even that of going to a food pantry. And I fully understand food pantries, but I'm glad that we have a relationship with the food pantry where the community can now begin to get locally sourced fruits and vegetables, because a lot of the things that are coming into the food pantry, people are not aware where those fruits and vegetables are coming from.
Exactly. Yeah, one of the things I like is kind of, you answered so many questions so wonderfully, Minister Hopkins. One of the things I think also is kind of helpful is reframing, at least for young people. I'm thinking about, I come from a marketing and PR background, is reframing how we talk about farming, and you hit on it in terms of it just being a business enterprise. I mean, guess what? You know what? If you are into hydroponics or to, mushroom farming, you can sell that stuff for like, $15, $24 a pound to Whole Foods. There are ways that we can look at farming and growing vegetables as an enterprise, that's something that is lucrative. And I think that's one of the ways we need to track it, because I also too, I'm a direct descendant of farmers, pre-Civil War farmers in Illinois who owned farm, and like, that also kind of gives even our own people, Black folks, double take. Wait a minute, how did your family own farm or own property? I mean, my family owned property back in 1864, and don't understand that this was what we did for wealth, and coming back to that, it's almost like a grassroots thing. And I think some of these, I think it's starting to happen with people like Michael Twitty, Tabitha Brown, and other people that are reclaiming our heritage in the food space and turning it into business. I love Tabitha Brown. I mean, she's just started out promoting, healthy produce, healthy food, the whole vegan lifestyle. And she's used that platform to become now a major brand that's doing business with Target, McCormick, So I think it's reframing what it means to be a farmer, meaning it's also framing it as being an entrepreneur.
Mhm, mhm. And thank you for sharing all of that. And that is right where we are at Southside Family Farms. We started out, and we still have free distribution models in our community after we realized the limited access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and then understanding the chronic health diseases that are in our communities and their access to fresh and healthy vegetables. You just got through saying that. And then helping educating them, our seniors, some of them knew that stuff, but we're talking about some generations. And so, like, I'll be 62 this year. And so I've got those generation, my children under me, and even, my mom was a home ec teacher, so I know she know it, and she made sure I knew about eating healthy and, eating, what they demonstrate as my plate. Oh gosh, that's a whole nother conversation. But our forefathers taught us what to eat. And in a lot of those vegetables, we do not eat them because they have disappeared from off of our plate, like okra. Okra being a very healthy, and understanding the benefits of okra, or why eating purple cabbage, or why eating beets, and all of those things I grew up with. Oh, you're gonna eat them before you eat that meat, and or
Miss Bernice, did you want to say something?
I just have a real quick question. So, a comment and a question, basically. So, in what I'm doing on my farm, I have run into challenges because I did truly wanted to help those who are underserved, and I just kind of ran into roadblocks. Based on the information you've given in your presentation, and also my conversations with Walt, um, I would really love the opportunity to meet with you. I think I've actually passed by your farms in maybe years past when I've been in the Columbus area, but I would love the opportunity to gain more knowledge from you all based on what you all have experienced thus far.
Mhm. And yes, and I appreciate that. And Agraria and the Black Farmer Network, I believe I'm framing that right, is doing some wonderful work in bringing us together. And at the OEFFA conference this year, we actually had a breakout room that lasted most of the afternoon where Black farmers from I think we had maybe 5 states that was represented in that room are coming together, and we are having these conversations and addressing, you know, how, and that sharing of knowledge. And so a lot of the resources I shared today, I see what time is up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We need to wrap up real
Okay.
quickly.
Okay. Yes. And so I would love to share, but I am saying to people, think outside of the box in those relationships, and don't be scared to ask.